Hello, I'm Lynn Niblink, and I am with Iowa Health and Human Services, Aging and Disability Services. And today we're going to talk about Employment First. This is the third in a series of brief webinars about Employment First. And this webinar is going to showcase some supported employment success stories. So we'll just do a little overview of what we're going to go through. First, we'll talk a little bit about customized employment, and there's a video that we'll see called Owner Revolution. We'll talk about individual placement and support model of supported employment, and the success video about that is called Brian's Story. We'll look at the Self-Employment Stars booklet called Thinking Outside the Box, a little bit about individual placement and support model, customized employment or customized discovery model, and the self-employment model. Iowa's employment vision is employment in the general workforce is the first priority and the expected and preferred outcome in the provision of publicly funded services for all working age Iowans with disabilities. And when we say working age, we typically think of age 16 to 64. What is community employment or competitive integrated employment? We believe that everyone, even people with significant disabilities, can and should have the opportunity to be fully employed in their community and take part in community life. These jobs are hallmarked by being paid by the employer at the prevailing wage, with the benefits typical of the job or position for anyone who would hold that job. It's integrated in the regular workforce, in a normal job setting. It's an individual job. And if a person continues to need support, usually they transition to what we call natural supports, which means basically people would get help from their coworkers when they need help on the job. This is a graphic that we like to show regarding showing that work is an integral part of community inclusion. And you can see the different phases that we've gone through over time where back in the 1800s, people with disabilities were excluded and shoved away and hidden from society. Then we went through a phase where they were segregated, and then into past the 1960s, 70s, and so forth, we began to integrate people with disabilities into our communities, although they were still held apart from community members. And now we're in a phase of society where we are including or trying to include people just in the general community for the best life outcomes for people. Customized employment or customized discovery is a model where job search planning can be a visual resume, job carving and job analysis is done on a one-by-one basis where one person is worked with their preferences and skills matched with an employer who needs those skills and those abilities. So we'll watch a video called Owner Revolution, which shows an Iowa customized employment story. This at the time came out of a service provider called Cass Incorporated out in Atlantic, Iowa.
Well, it started out in the early years with Chris Schaefer, the original owner of the company. He would hire the people that nobody else would hire, just people that he knew would do a good job.
Well, under the umbrella of Owner Revolution, we have 4 subsidiaries. Schaefer Systems and Schaefer Solutions both work with acrylic plastics in Adair. And here in Atlantic, we have Connectidoc and Plastic Professionals.
About 3 years ago, I did an employment analysis. I went around with one of the supervisors. It was learned through this employment analysis that there were pre-assembly jobs that maybe the other workers didn't have time to do. We came in and offered this to them, and they were flexible, willing to try it. It became so successful that we now have 6 currently that are employed here.
People that are working with supported employment, they have someone that will maybe start with them that first week. They're just kind of there standing back, making sure that the person is understanding everything and helping to just build the communication between the new employee and the team that they're on.
The supports on the job, the supports, outside of the job is what makes them successful.
All our counselor had to do was to call Heather on the phone and say, hey, I got this job candidate I'd like you to consider for this position. And Heather would take it and run.
Well, I went without a job for about a year, and that was just driving me nuts, and just sitting at home, not doing anything. And I appreciate what they done for me. It means a lot to me, just having a job and working with great people.
I think everybody deserves the opportunity to turn their life around, or to make better decisions for themselves, or to be given an opportunity that they were never given before. I have a very creative HR team, I think, that kind of comes up with different ways of recruiting people, and we have a great network of people in the community, Cass Incorporated, Voc Rehab, the school system, that we work with, that just helps us to determine, hey, do we have people out there that maybe we haven't, aren't your normal everyday people, or that are going to walk in the door and fill out an application, or go online and fill out an application. Maybe they need a little assistance with that, but they can do the job perfectly.
I definitely needed them to step up and help me get a job. Otherwise, I couldn't do it on my own.
When I was brought in here, I had used Voc Rehab myself. Growing up on a farm, I was caught in an auger when I was 6 years old and lost my right arm. Interviewing and hiring from these places is a great benefit for us. They want to come to work. They're happy to come to work. They're enjoyable to be around, dedicated.
I've been doing this a long time, and I feel that people with disabilities, when they are integrated into the community, they are very loyal to their job. You can count on them to be there every day with a smile on their face.
The people that we bring in, they tend to be our best employees because they value this opportunity so much. They like to see that they've contributed to something, and it's very meaningful for them, just because they feel like they belong to something that matters. They're doing something that matters, and they're valued. And to me, that's success.
Another model is the Individual Placement and Support, or IPS model. You can see that IPS is an evidence-based practice for people with serious behavioral health disabilities, sometimes also called serious mental illnesses. IPS is very successful at helping people get jobs of their own choice. It's based on 8 practice principles, and the programs are evaluated annually by a fidelity review, which measures how closely they follow the evidence-based practice model. Iowa's IPS state trainers and fidelity reviewers work from the University of Iowa's Center of Excellence for Behavioral Health, or CEBH. The creators of and the international leaders on IPS are the people at the IPS Employment Center out of New Hampshire, used to be affiliated with Dartmouth Medical School, and is currently affiliated with Columbia University from New York City, whose logo you see here. Their website is www.ipsworks.org. IPS is different from regular supported employment. It requires a strong partnership and role with mental health. IPS is an evidence-based practice model of supported employment for people with serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia, bipolar, major depression, and so forth. It helps people living with behavioral health conditions to work regular jobs that they choose. There are 30 randomized control trials currently, which show the evidence for its success worldwide. There are variations of supported employment, but IPS is the evidence-based practice of supported employment. In Iowa, we saw some early success with IPS. When we started IPS in Iowa, one of our pilot providers served a young woman 19 years old at the time of enrollment. She had been hospitalized due to her mental illness over 30 times in the 2 years before starting IPS, from the ages of 17 through 19. You do the math on that, that's more than once a month. When she had a job or got a job through the IPS pilot, she was no longer hospitalized. Then COVID-19 came along in 2020, and she became unemployed March, April, and May of 2020. Again, was hospitalized 3 times in those 3 months. Then the IPS team regrouped and helped her get another job, and she's remained stabilized in her mental health and her job since May of 2020. She has since then used a PASS plan to buy her a car. She has improved relationships with her family, and she's now moved out to an apartment on her own. She now works several part-time jobs of her choosing in areas that she's interested in. This is the kind of success that we want for people with serious mental illness all across the state of Iowa. Now we're going to watch a little video called Brian's Story. And this is a video that was made by Hope Haven Incorporated out of Lamars, Iowa. And it tells about Brian's experience with individual placement and support.
IPS stands for Individual Placement and Support, and it is an evidence-based practice, which basically means it has a very prescribed way to deliver the services. It includes the mental health partners. That's a huge part of the person's team, so everybody is coming to the person who's wanting to receive service with the same positive message. We're here to help you find work.
As my job, I work with clients who have some severe form of mental illness and help them find jobs. I get a referral through other providers and I meet with them. We talk about what job they would like to do, jobs they've done in the past, things they would be interested in doing. Once we find them a job, we meet once or twice a week depending on how things are going. We work with their employer as well if they would like. If there's any issues that come up, we create a plan and we talk about different coping skills they can use at work to deal with their mental health.
We have diagnoses of schizophrenia, anxiety, depression, severe and chronic depression, ADHD, some autism spectrum. So it's really a wide variety of folks that we work with. The purpose is to help individuals that have severe and chronic mental illness find work. Some employment services require people to be ready or have assessments done. IPS is not that way. So it's really just taking the person where they're at. Doesn't matter if they have criminal justice involvement. It doesn't matter if they have some addiction issues. We're still going to work with the person where they're at and find them work, because we really believe work is a huge part of recovery. It's not something you have to be recovered and then find a job. It is part of the treatment. I think one of the coolest things about Brian's story is there really was a great partnership. And that's what IPS is about. But besides the therapist and his case manager for his rehabilitation services, but also our mental health local region really helped. They helped pay for some first months of rent, because when he came into the program, he didn't have a place to live. He didn't have custody of his son. Lots of stuff going on in his life. He was at a pretty low point, and it was just cool to see all the resources come together and help get him on his feet.
Where Brian has come from and where he is now is just amazing to see. When Brian first found out he had schizophrenia, he had been coping with it with drugs, and he was in a halfway house for a while and then moved back to Lamars and was living in a trailer. He has a son. He didn't have custody of him at that point. He did get custody back of his son. He has a full-time job he's done very well at. He's also gotten off probation. He's paid off all of his fines, and he's buying a house. Just to see, him with his son as well, just how they've grown together, and he just is amazing.
I've worked with him since his son was quite small and Brian was new to recovery. And he's always been very committed to being a great dad for his son. And even though there are parts of him that wouldn't mind enjoying other things, that commitment is number one for him. He started seeing me way back early in his recovery and saw me with his son for parent-child interaction therapy. He was always very committed and asking, is there more I can do? What else can I do to help the relationship with my son? Brian is just hypervigilant about making sure that his son's needs are met, that his needs are met, so that he's the best dad that he can be. He's in independent housing. He is very anxious to get to the point where he owns that property by himself and can make the updates that he wants to make. He's done a beautiful job of creating credit, doing all those kinds of things that need to be done after you've suffered a substantial loss with mental health issues.
It helped out a lot. At first I was against it, because I thought I could do it all on my own, but I couldn't. It's hard to deal with all this mental stuff and then try and work 50 hours a week and then raise a kid and then do it all on your own and try not to ask for any help. And, it's just hard. I'm glad like Sheena and Terry are around because I need outlets and they help me so much. So I'm grateful for them and for my parents. My parents help me out a lot too.
Brian he's not afraid to share his story with others. He wants to be able to encourage people that they can do better as well. And I've told other clients, say, I have this other client who's been, where you've been, and he's been able to get a full-time job and, get his own place and be successful.
I want to help people because I was in the same situation. Like when I first came back to Lamar's, it was bad. They helped me out a lot. They helped me find a job. They helped me find a place to live. They helped me find the right providers. And now I'm on the right meds and, everything's good. I like Dory. She's nice. She helps me out a lot. She gives me a lot of good advice. She helped me with my insurance and helped me find other resources, and she's done a lot. It's nice having security and knowing where I'm gonna live and knowing I have a job. Unless something drastic changes, I'm gonna be employed. You know what I mean?
I really see the positive in him because I've seen all the things that he's done to change his life. And I would just recommend that service to whoever needs that service, because if you choose to use the things that are there, you can go a long ways. And Brian is a perfect example of that.
Okay, and this is a quote from a mental health practitioner about IPS. I had someone crying in my office that I didn't feel I could help. I thought she needed a higher level of care. She loved animals. The IPS specialist started working with her and found her a job at a kennel. And she's a different person today and getting better and better. I saw all these boxes she needed to check first before considering work. But now all those boxes are easier to check because of work. The IPS specialist is so caring and compassionate about what she does, goes above and beyond for everyone that she works with. There's also a model of self-employment supports. So Medicaid uses provided supported employment for self-employment similarly to what it does for competitive integrated employment. Voc Rehab also has the Iowa Self-Employment Program, or ISE, and then you can see some links there. ISE is for Voc Rehab or Iowa Department for the Blind customers who choose self-employment. You can see the prior eFirst 102 webinar for more details on the self-employment supports from VR or from Medicaid. This is a little graphic about a booklet that Iowa produced some years ago. It's called Thinking Outside the Employment Box. And I believe we have a link where you can access this later on in this webinar. But it talks about 18 of Iowa's self-employment stars, we call them, and stars stands for skills, talents, abilities, resources, and social connections. These 18 people used HCBS and Voc Rehab services to start and run their own successful businesses. It highlights M's Coffee Shop in Independence, which many of you may have heard of. And Josh Spiess runs a business called In the Country Garden and Gifts. They specialize in hostas and water plants, perennials, and homespun crafts. There's a Whiskey Creek Trading Company, Straw Hat Farms out of Pleasantville, CNC Photo Booths, and others. The subject of the first story, Mia Peterson, had Down syndrome, and she passed away in 2021 from Alzheimer's at the age of 47. Mia was a tireless and delightful advocate and self-advocate for people with disabilities to live a fully inclusive life. And there is the link that you can see the booklet. There's also the link to the video that we saw earlier on the Job Honor Awards, Owner Revolution. And then there are also some Medicaid infrastructure grant videos. One's called Wage Earners, and I like Mary Ann's story in that one. If you click that link and you scroll to 2 minutes and 52 seconds, Mary Ann's story will come up after that. Here are some contacts about Employment First and about benefits planning for people with disabilities, the individual placement and support model, and then for customized employment or customized discovery, you can contact Ashley Lance, who works for Griffin and Hammes, or you have Griffin Hammes info at griffinhammes.com link right there. Finally, here's some more links directly to those places for TA. And we'll end with my contact information there. And you can feel free to contact me by email at any time. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you for joining us today. I hope this was informative.